So you're on the story about you're in the front of this medium meeting, and all these people are getting there. Can you continue from there, and then maybe tell? I remember when you were telling the story. I saw you first on this Ask the Medium thing, where when you finally described the thing about owning it and who it was almost like you could hear a pin drop on the internet when you told that story. So can you go through that whole story?
Sorry, which one was it? Refresh my mind again.
Well, this is when you identified, because you told the story like you're telling now, and you don't really identify who we're talking about here, and then you finally identify who it is. And I remember when we were watching it on the internet on this Ask the Medium podcast, it was sort of like, it's just like, wow. It's like everybody went, wow, I couldn't believe what you were saying. So maybe identify who we're talking about and how because at first you don't want to identify who you're dealing with, and then later on he tells you to do it, correct?
Yes, and it was an interview with one of the glossy magazines.
Okay.
And always I have the stock answer for all of my interviews when they ask who is this artist, because I just call him Leo.
Yeah.
Which is what we agreed, because right at the outset he wanted me to just call him Leo, which made me comfortable, because if I claimed who he was then, I'd have been made a worldwide laughingstock. But since those years back then, we were 6 years on, and I'd more than proved who he was. And he had spoken to people himself through my trance mediumship, and he proved over and over who he was. So we're on this interview, and she asked the inevitable question, do you know who this artist is? And I was about to respond in the usual way by saying, well, it really doesn't matter who it is. The fact is, he is drawing people's families, and they are recognizing them. They're copies of photos, be those photos 100 years old or yesterday. And I can't be in everybody's homes around the world, can I?
Yeah.
See them. So instead of saying all of this, Leo said to me, own me. And I stopped breathing, and I'm mentally sending back, don't be silly, they'll crucify me. He said, trust me, own me. So I took a deep breath and I said, well, actually, yes, I do. He's Leonardo da Vinci. And I did it like that, Leonardo da Vinci, but she heard me. Da Vinci. And I'm feeling sick with worry. But he's saying, go on, it's okay. And then she said, will he talk to me? And I'm saying, Leo, will you talk to her? And he gives me the affirmative. He will talk. He will answer her questions. So she started asking questions. What can he tell me about himself personally that most people don't know? And he said, in your terms, I was gay. And so I said this, and she's tippy-tapping on her tutor. Sorry, she's rattling away on her computer. Yeah. I call it tippy-tapping on a tutor. Language, okay. So then it took her a long time, but she found it, that he was actually gay. And that during his lifetime, someone had put an anonymous message into the church's little box, you know, because he was, well, we won't go into what he was, but you know what he was, his religion. Everyone had to be, or else they were tortured to death, or worse. And so somebody actually said that he was doing inappropriate things with his student, who actually was with him the whole of his life. His student never quite seemed to get the hang of art, you know. And one of the other things he told me was that his painting of John the Baptist, are you familiar with it? No? Okay. Well, it's this rather delicious looking, very feminine man with long hair, very fine features. Okay. And he's doing that. So he's indicating up. Yeah. That was his partner's face.
Wow.
Hmm. And quite so. And of course, it is known now. And that partner was with him for his whole life. Obviously, he never married. He was not attracted to women except for their beauty. And he actually passed away in May, 501 years ago, come May.
Okay.
And he ended his life in France, in a, it's called, he lived in a chateau in the grounds of the king's chateau, and the king built him that chateau to spend the rest of his life in. And he was there some 3+ years before he passed away in that chateau.
Wow.
Okay. And he's buried there. And for quite a number, well, nearly 2 years, I suppose, if I'm honest, he kept asking me to go to his chateau.
Wow.
Go there, let me share my home with you, let me show you things that no one knows.
Wow.
And of course, I never had time because I was jetting around the world doing my work. I just didn't have time. So I promised him one day I would go. And then it was always my husband that managed to make it happen and not me. And one day he said, we have a free week, why don't we go down to the Loire Valley? And the little town is called Amboise, where his chateau was. He said, we'll drive through. We'll get on the ferry with the car and we'll drive down. So I thought, yes, that would be nice. And there's a lot more to this story. But, I would love to go and get it and show it to you, but it's not in this room. But the night before we left to drive down there, I went to see a physical medium called Kai Muga. Have you heard of him?
I just interviewed him a couple weeks ago.
All right. Kai, beautiful Kai, and his beautiful wife, Julia. So I was there in the seance room the night before we left for the chateau.
Wow.
And Spirit actually talking about someone in the room, a lady in the room who tirelessly worked for Spirit, all over the place, constantly traveling and abroad and whatever. And that they had a special gift for me. The Spirit had a gift for me.
Wow.
And of course I'm listening to this and the voice went on to say, she has been trying to see Kai for a very long time, but it seemed the closest we could get was his plane passing mine. We went in the opposite direction. So I'd actually finally got to meet him. So they were saying this and I thought, oh, somebody else trying to meet him too. No idea it was me they were talking about. And then a port it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He was like rubbing his hands together.
Yeah.
I cannot make mine. I'll see if I can lift it up because it doesn't work. But can you see my left arm there?
Yeah.
Prop it. He was rubbing them together like this until this huge like vortex of energy started to spin, and it was bright blue and white, and then it exploded, and then from it fell to the ground with a loud thud, this thing which I couldn't see at the time. Let me just put my arm back down. It hurts if I keep it up too long. And they said it was for me, and I just cried my eyes out. And they gave me this huge activation stone. So I was leaving for the chateau next day, and I took it with me.
Wow.
It was to complete the grid with Leo. Oh,
That's
just amazing.
I'll tell you a couple of stories in terms of this. I'm going to see Kai Muga. I was supposed to go see Kai Muga June the 19th in Florida. He's coming to Florida, but now because of the virus, they've canceled everything. He's going to do a DNA test, which I'll send you. This whole idea that when you have a walk-in, your DNA actually changes, and Kai Muga has agreed to do the test. So, like when you're talking about when you come out and Leonardo da Vinci comes in, the DNA will change, and we're absolutely guaranteeing this will happen. But we need people like trance mediums, and so I've been following Kai for a long time, and finally I got to meet him, and now it's been canceled, so it'll be another time. It's almost the same as you, where they make you wait a little bit longer to do that. So interesting that you would have it. And I'm actually doing a book on apport, so maybe if you have a photo of your apport, I would love to stick it in the book, because I'm doing a whole book on apportations. That's why I started following Kai Muga around.
Oh, he's amazing. I was seeing him in May in England.
Okay.
But I heard this morning, I think, that was also cancelled.
Yeah, you're supposed to be in New York, in
I know.
I guess a lot of this is going to be cancelled now.
It's all everything's cancelled.
Yeah.
I'm locked down here.
Yeah.
My daughter lives on the premises in the other wing.
Okay.
And she I'm forbidden to go out.
Wow.
It's happening to me. I'm in my 70s. If I get it, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Oh, that's say. Oh, we've lost Charlie.
Can you see your screen now with you on your?
Oh, you've done it. Thank
yes.
goodness for that.
So here's some of maybe you can talk a little bit about some of these drawings that you did. These are the.
Yes, indeed. These are very interesting, because the one at the top left, as you're looking, clearly an airman, isn't he?
Yes, yes.
He's called John Knight, and the lady who attended the show in Hull filled in a form to have a family portrait done.
Okay.
Now I know who I'm going to send, and she received that portrait.
Wow.
And she looked at it. She was hoping to get a husband. He'd just passed away. But she got him. And she knew that she didn't know him. Absolutely knew she could not know him. But trusting me and my work, she kept it.
Wow.
Then, some weeks later, she was clearing out the wardrobe and came across a little box her husband had kept with his private things in. There was a World War II ration book, for instance, and when she picked it up to look at it, there was a photo stuck on the back of it.
Wow.
And it was the photo you see there. And it was of her husband's 21-year-old brother, who, as an airman, was shot down over the Channel.
Wow.
War. And of course, as you see, perfectly matches.
Perfect. Yeah. Wow.
The picture that I sent her. So she very excitedly phoned into the local BBC radio programs.
Wow.
But sadly, she left the photos at the desk. So when they rang me to interview me, they didn't have the pictures in front of them, which was very, very sad indeed. Because as you clearly see, it's his. Well, he would have been her brother-in-law.
Yes. Yes.
Now, moving to the one next to it, the older man with the round face.
Yes. Yes.
Again, the lady didn't immediately. Oh no, that's the one below. Sorry. Yes. She did indeed recognize him as her uncle. Okay. And when he passed away that same year, just weeks earlier again, he had become very emaciated, and she was deeply, deeply saddened to see him looking like that. Mm-hmm. So when she ordered the portrait, he came back looking as she remembered him, as you see by the photo, with his weight back on and his lovely, happy, round face.
Beautiful.
Now we go down to the little girl. A very interesting situation, that one. We were doing a show at a place called, oh my gosh, I've forgotten the name of it. Oh my gosh, I've forgotten the name of it. But whatever the town was called, that little girl, I had drawn her that night at that show.
Okay. And
nobody recognized her at all. And so I kept her, knowing that Leo doesn't make mistakes. Yeah. He does not get it wrong. So I kept her. And then, 3 weeks later, I was at another show. And it was sorry, my husband's trying to tell me. What is it, Mike? I cannot hear you. I cannot hear you.
Mansfield.
No, what's the town called?
Sheffield.
No. The town where the young girls came through. And it was the road she lived
Mansfield
on.
Road.
It wasn't Mansfield Road. Anyway, I wish I could remember what it's called. But whatever it was, she recognised the name of the first place we were at. It's, oh gosh, it's in the book, surely. And so 3 weeks later, we were in Sheffield, but at the particular village where she had remembered the name. But the child was very compromised in her lifetime. She couldn't speak. She couldn't walk. She was 17, but as in my picture, with a mental age of about 7. So she knew that the name was correct.
Retford?
Retford. It was Retford. Thank you, Michael. It was Retford. And we did the show in Retford, and it was not recognised there. But she knew the name Retford, so she was not claimed. However, we were in Sheffield at Retford, Sheffield, 3 weeks later, and Leo instructed me to put the picture that I had done under the cameras during the interval. So I did that, and then at the end, this lady came up when everybody was leaving, and I had my back turned, and I was packing up my easel, and this lady came up and she said, "Excuse me," and then I heard the little girl say to me, "Mummy!"
Wow.
So I turned around and I said, "Oh my goodness, she's yours, isn't she?" She's just said, "Mummy." So it was her daughter, and she later sent the picture to me.
Wow.
So that was that one. The lady coming next was her daughter was in the audience, and as you see, the sketch exactly matched the photo there. The next one, I cannot remember the story of the next one.
Okay.
But as you can see, it's clearly that same lady.
Yeah, clearly.
And then, the man next. Again, the lady who received him did not remember the face at all until, a long time later, a year or so later, she came across the picture of her godfather, who had been a chapel minister.
Okay.
And he was stood at the pulpit there with the big Bible.
Yeah.
And then she recognized that that's who had come through on the picture.
Wow.
So wasn't immediately recognized. The bride at the bottom left, as I'm looking now, was doing a show in Australia on my first tour there. And I was doing a private reading, and I drew that young woman. Wow. It's rather good now, sadly. But it was her mother, again recently passed. Wow. And as you can see, clearly her. And then the final one, which is painted, the first tour I did in Australia, I fell into the grip of a con man, I'm afraid, who called himself a medium.
Okay.
And he had opened a bank account, and he'd set up a whole 4-month tour.
Yeah.
Everything that was earned was put into the bank account in his name.
Oh my goodness.
And throughout this, he gave me about $1,000 throughout the 4 months. Well, 3.5 months it was by then.
Wow.
And he had no mediumistic ability anyway. But I tell you this because the story of the painting is a part of it. And this man at the end deserted me in Australia.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes, he did. Yes, he absolutely did. He just abandoned me. And he wouldn't let me get my clothing from his home or anything. So I was saved by another organization out there. She said, come and stay with me. She had an metaphysical center there. And she invited me there. And she said, because obviously I'm a medium, she said, "Would you like to sit on my advanced group class tonight?" And I said, "Yes, of course." And when I got in, My easel had been set up. Wasn't expecting that. However, Leo set about drawing and drew one of the girls' dads, which she immediately recognized. And then he started to paint. And he painted that young woman that you see there.
Yeah.
And the photograph of her was taken when she was a young woman, as you see. And she had she had passed away in the March, and I was there in May. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the painting was done at that particular class. And if you look closely at the lady's photo, again, it's mirror imaged, you'll see that her right eye, and on my painting, the left eye is higher than the other.
Okay.
These little things, these little details are incredible when you study the photo against the actual painting. And so that's how that one came about. There is always a story behind these pictures.
Wow.
And they're just amazing.
Can you explain the mirror image? Why did he explain that? Why was he doing mirror image?
Because Leo, in his lifetime, knew an awful lot that society did not. They were very primitive, even in time, because we're going back to the 1500s, aren't we? And of course, he was designing and making aircraft. He made a helicopter, for goodness sake.
Yes.
Back in the early 15s. And of course, there's a lovely story behind that, actually, which I will tell you, but he was doing all of this stuff. And our art historians, he really laughed about this so much, decided that he must have ADHD.
Okay.
Because he never sort of really connected with people on a personal level, and he got bored with them very quickly. So they decided he got an attention deficit disorder, the historians. Oh gosh, he so laughed about that. He said to me, answer me this question. Who would I have talked to at any length about my knowledge at that time? The people were primitive. My knowledge was far greater than any of them in that time. I mean, flying aircraft in the 1500s, early 1500s, he was way ahead of them, wasn't he?
Yeah.
You looked at all of his inventions, and even now in our anatomy and physiology, his work of the human body and his notes and his diagrams of the human body and how it worked is still in use today.
Yeah, it's very strange. I actually saw a collection at Stanford University a couple of months ago. They had his material there. We were there trying to see some files, and then I went, and they actually had his actual material in the hallway. It's very interesting.
Yes, I've seen it too. That's another thing he made me do.
Hey, is that right? Go to Stanford.
Well, not Stanford. No, it was on in London.
Oh, they moved it around. Okay, yeah.
Trafalgar Square, and it was the greatest collection of exhibits ever put together in one place at any given time.
Wow.
So he wanted me to go. Now, I was born up in the high peaks of Derbyshire, in the hills.
Yeah.
What I know, the hills and the trees and the rivers and the birds. That's who I am.
Yeah.
I'm not a city person. Cities intimidate me. Yeah. And so I'm never comfortable to go into the big cities, or at least I am for a short time. Then I want to leave. So this exhibition was on in London, and he wanted me to go. And I did not want to go. And I said, oh, please, Leo, don't make me go there. However, he wanted me to go. I was to learn why. Fascinating. So I rang up and said, could I book tickets to see the exhibition? And when they stopped laughing, they said it was booked out before the first week was out for the whole exhibition time. However, there are 500 tickets given on the door if you can get here early enough in the morning. So I just happened, wouldn't you believe it, to be doing a show near London the night before. So I thought, well, okay, I'll go on into London and I'll see the exhibition. So of course, to be told there were no tickets, but I underestimated Leo. So I thought, well, we'll go really early and we'll get one of the 500 on the door. Told my daughter all about this, of course. And we got there, and there must have been 1,000 people around the block.
Wow.
So I thought, well, he knows he wants me to see this.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him get past all that. No problem. Nothing stops Leo. So I thought, well, I'll be absolutely fair. And I went to the head of the queue, to the security people, and said, is there any possible way that I can get into this exhibition today? And he pointed to all the queues around the block and said, no, none at all. So I'm walking away chuntering, making me come down here, and I can't even get in, Leo. You know, grumble, grumble. My phone rang. It's my daughter. Mother, where are you? You may well ask where I am. I'm just leaving Trafalgar Square. I cannot get into the exhibition, chunter, chunter.
Yeah.
And she said, well, I just put Facebook on, the internet, eBay on, and 2 tickets have just flashed up. Shall I buy them?
Wow.
Yes. So she said, there's a bit of a catch. The time slot given for these tickets is in 10 minutes time. And you will have to get them printed off. So we looked at them and they're in Chinese. And I thought, oh my God, I don't even look Chinese. How am I going to? However, I did. So my husband bid me wait there, and he ran off and came back 5 minutes later with the printed tickets. And we got in. We got in with 3 minutes to spare by the time we'd given our tickets.
Fascinating.
We go down these stairs. It's like going down into the dungeons. Down and down these spiral stairs, and until we come into this room with no natural light, and all of his artwork is there. Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. And I went and stood in front of the first piece. It was the design for a tank, I think, for his tank, way back then.
Yeah, yeah.
And as I looked at it, stood in front of it, looking at it, it fell off the page. It just disappeared off the paper. And then I was watching through his eyes as the hand came up and started to draw again the details of the tank and the notes, all written in mirror image so people can't read them.
Wow.
They wouldn't think to look through a mirror to read, you see, in those days.
Yes.
Which is why he did it. Because the sort of work he was doing would have posed some very interesting questions. How is that possible? Flying machines? I mean, really? You know, this man's a wizard. Put him to death. So it was. So, and this is why he hid his work in that way. And this happened as I looked at everyone, it just fell off. And I watched him either repaint it, redraw it, rewrite it. I watched it all. And my husband's looking back and thinking, how can anybody stare at a picture for 20 minutes without moving? What have you seen that I don't? You know. Oh, if only I'd told him at the time. However, so it was. So it was fascinating to me to see him repaint and redraw these things and to understand every little cog that drove every little wheel and why, and how momentum was made through these cogs and wheels. And I understood it all.
Wow.
And I learned. He was, and is, sorry, darling, a genius. He's listening in, of course. A genius. He was a genius, and he still is. And you know, when he's not working with me in art, and he tells me this many times, he's with the scientists. He's working with our scientists.
Is that right?
It's upstairs and scientists on this side, which I call downstairs.
Yeah.
Okay, he's working with our living scientists because in the upcoming year or two, you're going to see a massive change in the whole world, in how we perceive things. You must know for yourself that there's an incredible awakening of the human consciousness. Although the media blocks it out from us, There are massive tens of thousands of people protesting everywhere in the world at the way that we are being treated, our food being poisoned, etc. And I need to leave that subject alone. I might start upsetting people and get myself killed. But you see, I know all things from me. Yeah. So he's working with the scientists on reversing this damage to our planet. So for art, he just is with me, and then he's with the scientists.
Wow. Does he have a message in terms of for the modern world? Has he given you some indication of yeah?
Many messages. Don't be afraid. Be aware. And that for all of the atrocities perpetrated upon mankind today, we have the power. Not the elite who are perpetrating this, but we, the people, have the power. And we have the power because we need to comply in order for them to achieve their goal. If we do not comply, we win because we are the higher numbers. It's like the food, the genetically modified food. We all know how dangerous it is. Well, actually, Leo's pointing out, no, we don't all know how dangerous it is. But what we do know is that 1 in 2 people are getting cancers. Ask the questions, why? Where are all these things coming from? I know the answers, but I dare not verbalize them whilst there are people listening. So, so the way that we stop this activity of poisoning our food is simply by not buying it. Do not buy food from the supermarket's shelves unless it says it's organically grown, it's clean food. Otherwise, don't buy it. So if we don't buy it, they'll have to stop producing it, won't they? I know where our world is going, and it's bad. But I also know that we will prevail as a people. We will lose a lot in the process, but we will prevail. And, you know, Spirit are very aware of what's happening. They're so aware that they've raised our consciousness to be aware of what's happening to us and all this illness. We now know. People are waking up so quickly. And I dare not go on too much with this because it really is knowledge that most people don't realize and should. However, we work quietly.
Beautiful. Do you believe you're on a soul contract? Have you ever gone through that in terms of coming in at this time in this place to do this particular work?
I know from Leo, and I trust everything he tells me because, trust me, he doesn't get it wrong. I know from him that every one of us, as souls, as spirit, choose to be born into this world again. Because, you know, the spirit world is home. And we come here, which is the university of life. We come to learn how to be what we should be. We are part of that whole. We are part of a huge universal energy, and that energy is love. Utterly and completely just love. And from it, we come and we choose to have all these experiences. When Leo first told me this, I questioned it. I said, who on earth would come here and factor in a severe accident which would make the rest of their lives so difficult? I was to find out. When I had an accident myself just months ago, which took out my left arm.
Wow.
So, you know, I have a little use of it, but not a great deal. It doesn't matter though. I've got another one, look.
And the one that draws.
Well, they both draw, that's the thing. Every show that we did, the very first pictures that we did, Leo and I, we did 2 at a time.
Oh, so you used both hands, is that right?
And drew 2 faces at the same time.
Oh my goodness, I've seen that before. That is fascinating.
It's on my website.
Oh, wow. That's...
Yeah. There's lots of footage of it, you know, of me working 2 hands at once. And so one might be the mum and the other might be the dad.
And your left hand, can you still draw with your left hand?
Not yet.
No, okay. Wow.
No, I need to pick it up for it.
Yes, you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, I have some movement, but not the from the elbow to the hand is fine,
Mhm.
but from the elbow to the shoulder was shattered.
Wow.
And of course, it wasn't operated on, so it was an impact injury. So the humerus broke
Okay.
just here and
Okay.
was driven up to the head.
Oh my goodness.
Now shorter than it was, and of course I can't get the upper arm muscles to work.
Yeah.
And just when it started to work, the rough bone surface actually chafed through the deltoid tendon muscle, severed it, ruptured it.
Wow.
So now I've got this, they call it a Popeye, and it's this big lump sat at the top of my arm, which is my muscle.
Wow.
So I have to make it all work somehow. I will.
And you're still touring?
No.
Oh.
No, this virus has got us all housebound.
No, but I mean, if it was going to end, you would still, because I noticed you're going to be in New York, and I would love, because we were going to come, actually was going to come and try to maybe see you for a private session, because I was going to be in Manchester in June, but that's been canceled. So
everything's cancelled.
Yeah, everything's canceled.
Including New York, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything. I've got nothing booked out now. Everything's cancelled.
You're still doing the private stuff,
Oh yes.
Yeah, which I'm looking forward to. That's first thing I'll do when I get off the internet is make sure I get the letter and the money to you, because I'm very excited to see what's going to happen here.
I won't know.
I was even saying to Sinead, I was talking when we first, because she was on with me when we were on this Ask the Medium when we first saw you, and I said to Sinead, I really don't have any Da Vinci on my wall. Maybe we should get one of these things. It's sort of like. So I'm very much looking forward to it, and I want to thank you for your time. You're very, very entertaining, and you have wonderful stories. The synchronicity stories, I do have a lot of synchronicity stuff, so I appreciate that, and almost like being guided by spirit. You're one of the best stories, I think, in terms of somebody guided by spirit. Because I know there was the Rosemary Brown. I guess you're familiar with her. Was in England where she was getting the music and then the art. She was the same sort of thing. So I followed people like you for many years. I wrote a book called Inspired: The Paranormal World of Inspiration, of Creativity. And I look at people like you and people who get music in their, in the middle of the night, like Paul McCartney and stuff like that. And I'm absolutely fascinated. So it's been an honor to talk to you, and hopefully we can see you sometime when I'm in England, or when you're somewhere else at a show. I'm just absolutely fascinated. It's an honor to have done an interview with you.
Oh, bless you. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Hopefully we'll get back out there at some stage. Beautiful. I do believe the virus will burn off come the summer, and because heat does not, it doesn't like heat. So
yeah, I call it the oneness virus, because it's kind of like a message that, we build walls and we build, wars and stuff, and this sort of treats you like we are all one. We are all connected, no matter how you try to deny it. It's almost like a lesson from the spirit world to say, we'll come in anyway, and you got to realize, because you see people coming together now, where people are singing and they're all fighting together. The division has, in a lot of ways, stopped, and people realize we are all one thing. And unless you work together like the cells of a human body, it's game over. That's right.
And this is what will come out of this. We'll come out as a people, as a species. And the biggest problem we have is to get rid of those divisions, that divide people. And those divisions, and this will get me shot, are religions.
Yeah.
Religion divides.
Yeah.
There's a message that's coming all the time from spirit. You must come together as the human species. You must come together with the animals and the trees and the birds, because everything is part of this planet's ecosystem. Everything supports another life.
Beautiful.
I have these conversations all the time, but what divides us as people is religion.
Yeah.
And we must We
come
must.
together.
We
Beautiful.
must
That's a wonderful, wonderful message to leave it with. And once again, I'm honored to have been able to talk to you. Thank you very much for spending your time. And I will let you know when I get the photo, who it was. And if you can say at some point, provide me the photo of the apport, because I'll put it in the book. And the people who are around Kai, who are getting me in, will be very interested to hear this story, because I have people who are helping me get in, because he's kind of a popular guy. There's only so many spots, and I have some people who helped me get to see him, because I knew I wanted to see him.
Yes. Oh, Kai's beautiful. And so is his wife. They are so pure and honest and so learned in this field.
Beautiful.
I think he must be the best in the world today.
Yes, yes, he is the top. Thank you very much. Namaste. Bye-bye.
No, bye-bye. See if I can get that to